In this video, we're going to take a look at one of my new favorite classroom tools on the internet called Classflow. There's a lot that you can do with Classflow. Let's look at how to get started using this amazing tool. But first, I want to give you a glimpse of what it's capable of. As it says here on classflow.com, it says you can create and deliver assignments, real-time assessments, interactive lessons, student rewards, and more. Now, some of you may be thinking, oh, this is just another formative assessment tool like Kahoot or Socrative, and I love those tools, those are amazing. But Classflow is actually a little bit different. It can actually incorporate those other tools into Classflow. So let's look at an example of what it's capable of. So this is a glimpse of the Classflow teacher account, and you can see that there's a way to create classes where you have groups of students, student lists, and you can see their progress in Classflow. There's also a My Resources page, and that's what we're looking at right now, where you would have your lessons, your assessments, and other resources that you either create or that you collect. There's also a marketplace, and this is going to be growing in leaps and bounds. Classflow was created by Promethean, the people behind the Promethean board and the Promethean Planet website. And right now, it says there are thousands of interactive resources. They are in the process of bringing over all of the Promethean Planet resources that are available there and putting them in Classflow. You'll be able to bring in tens of thousands of interactive resources that were created maybe for the Promethean board, but now will be usable in Classflow, whether or not you have a Promethean interactive whiteboard. So those are some of the options that you have as a teacher, but I'm going to go in and click on My Resources, and I'm going to pull up an example lesson. So the parts of speech lesson, and we'll look at how to create this or something like it in a few minutes. But for now, I'm just going to click Deliver. And I could deliver this lesson to my Spanish 1 class, or just create an ad hoc session with no particular class assigned. That's what I want to do. So I'll click that, and my lesson appears on the screen. And imagine that this is being projected using a projector onto a screen, and so the whole class can see what is here on my computer. Now, meanwhile, for my students to be able to access this lesson on their own devices, let's say you're in a one-to-one setting, either with laptops or Chromebooks or iPads or other tablets, it really doesn't matter. What the students would need to do in order to see the content for my lesson on their own device is they would need to go to classflow.com and put in this teacher code, and that will get them connected to this lesson. Now, even if you're not in a one-to-one setting, you could still very easily use Classflow. You could just have the students get into small groups, or you could take them to the computer lab if you have one, and have the students use it that way. All right, so now we're ready for the students to add themselves to this session so that they can see my lesson. Now, to show you this, I have mirrored my iPad, and so you can see my iPad is here on the screen, and this would work similarly if they're on a desktop computer, laptop, Chromebook, whatever. But I've just opened up a browser, in this case it's Safari, and pretending that I'm a student using this device here, I'm just going to go to classflow.com/student and just tap Go. And here the student ideally would have a login and password that he or she could tap to sign in. Later on, I'll show you how to set this up for your students if you'd like to do that. But for now, I'm just going to tap Join Class without having a login or a password or anything like that. And I'll just enter the class code. This is the ad hoc session code right here in the upper right corner. And so I'll just type in that code, including the number and the letters that are part of it, and then I'll tap Join Class. And now on the student device, notice what it says. It says, don't see your name in the list, then enter your name. And the reason it doesn't show up in the list is because I set this up as an ad hoc session without assigning it necessarily to a list of students. So now the student puts in his or her name, taps Join Anyway, and now John is seeing part of my lesson. Now, one of the things that sets Classflow apart from many other formative assessment tools, and also one of the things that makes Classflow a little bit hard to learn to use for the teacher, is the idea that there are actually two screens for each part of the teacher's lesson. At least there can be. So you can see here on the left, this is the teacher screen, and maybe that's projected onto the screen for all of the students to see. Okay, but then there's also the student screen. So you can see on the teacher screen, it says the parts of speech, and it's got a word cloud with some of the parts of speech. But the students see something slightly different in this case. They're just seeing the word cloud with the parts of speech. Okay, and I'll show you how to set this up in a few minutes. So now, when the teacher would like to move on with the lesson and begin the lesson, all he or she has to do is go over here to the right, and that's where the teacher can control the lesson. So as the teacher, I could go on and say, all right, I'm ready to move on to slide 2. But actually, before I do that, I would like to start a pre-assessment. So notice that on this first slide, it says Start Assessment. I can click that, and let's look at what the student sees. On the student device, now the screen has automatically changed to an assessment. And this is a pre-assessment. I haven't taught the students anything here, but I want to find out, do they know which of these is a verb? The students can go ahead and tap what they think is the correct answer and then submit it. Now, which of these is a noun? I'll go ahead and I'll put in a wrong answer this time. Tap Submit. It tells the student the assessment has ended and gives them a nice background picture here. Now, as the teacher, I can go back to this list here and I can say, okay, it's time to stop the assessment. So I'll click Stop, and then I'll move on to the next part of my lesson. So I click to advance to my second slide. So this is the slide that's going to be shown on the screen using the projector. But meanwhile, the students are seeing this on their devices. Listen carefully for the 8 parts of speech that will be mentioned in this video. So the students are looking at that on their device. But at the front of the classroom, this is what is being shown. And I can click play to start the video that gives an introduction to the 8 parts of speech in English. Okay, so let's say the students watch this video, but while they're watching, they're being reminded on their device of what they're supposed to be doing. Once the video is done, I could click Start Assessment, and the student devices change to reflect the fact that I'm now asking them to do something. Okay, now that you've watched this video, can you identify the 8 parts of speech? From memory, can you remember what they are? So the students would type in their answers and then tap Submit to send their answers to me as the teacher. So to help you see how this is organized, I'm going to go down and click this button here toward the bottom, and you can see that here at the left it has what's going to be shown on the teacher device, or in this case through the projector onto a screen. Okay, there's my first slide with the title, there's the video, but meanwhile the students will be seeing these things. So you have teacher or projector on the left, student on the right. And this is just a really great way of organizing, I think, a lesson for the students. I want to show you one more example, and then we'll learn how to make these ourselves. Look at the third slide I have here. This is a Kahoot activity. Now, some would say that Kahoot is a competitor of Classflow, but Classflow doesn't really see it that way. I can use Classflow to administer Kahoot activities. So I want to administer this Kahoot activity to my students. The first thing I would need to do, though, is stop the assessment that is in progress. So I'll click Stop, and now I just click on the third slide to go to the Kahoot activity. Meanwhile, on the student devices, this is what they see. And there's some instructions there. It says Student Login for Kahoot, and there's an Open button. They just tap Open, and the students are taken to the student login version of Kahoot. Now, if you're familiar with Kahoot, this is exciting to you. Kahoot is a wonderful tool. The downside to it, I guess, is that there's 2 versions of Kahoot. There's one for the teachers and one for the students. And that can be kind of confusing and a little bit challenging to get the students signed into the right place and to remember for you as the teacher to sign into the teacher account. Well, Classflow makes that super easy and simple. The students are sent the link to get to the student version of Kahoot. Meanwhile, the teacher on the projector is showing the teacher version of Kahoot. So this is my Kahoot account, and I just put in a link to the specific activity that I want my students to play. So I'm going to browse down the page a little bit, and I'll just click play. Remember, the students are seeing this on the screen. And once it's loaded, I can just go down and click Start Now, and I can decide what kind of Kahoot. In this case, I'll just do a classic Kahoot. And again, the students are seeing this, but on their devices, they're seeing this. Okay, so for the students to join this activity, this Kahoot activity, using Classflow, all they do is they look at their device and they put in the code that's showing at the front of the screen, tap Enter. The students then need to put in their nickname, and now the student is ready to play this Kahoot. As the teacher, I can just go ahead and click Start, and all of my students are very easily and quickly enrolled into this Kahoot activity, and they'll be able to answer the questions and play the game. So let's take a look now at how to get started making an activity like this. The first thing you need to do, of course, to get set up to use Classflow is to go to classflow.com. When you get there, you should see something similar to this. And notice that right away, you're allowed to search thousands of interactive resources, activities and things that other Classflow users have created. And also, eventually, all of the Promethean Planet content will be here as well. Some of it I think already is. So I could type in, let's say, language arts, and I probably should be more specific than that, but you can see a whole bunch of activities pop up. Right now, most of them are free activities. Eventually, there will be some paid activities, and teachers actually will be able to sell their own activities that they make, and they'll be able to keep a portion of the proceeds, and Classflow will keep just a little bit of those as well. So these are some exciting features in Classflow. But for now, instead of just searching and finding other people's content, I want to show you how to set up your own account and start making your own content. So here in the upper right, it says sign up. You would just click that. And this is where your students could go to sign up as students and be enrolled in your class. But if you're a teacher, you'll go here, choose sign up as a teacher, and just set up your username. All right, it tells me I've successfully set up a Classflow account. It gets me in and welcomes me, and I have a nice helper that appears here to kind of walk me through the steps, and to point out also that I do have some help here, interactive help, that I can click to get back to that helpful team member. And also there are some videos that you can watch on some of the main things you can do with Classflow. You can get those videos here by clicking this arrow. So if you forget any aspect of this, or if you want to learn even more than what's in my video tutorial, this is a good place to go to get kind of short, somewhat limited, but really good tutorials on how to do the different things. Okay, across the bottom it highlights some of the things you can do with Classflow, and you should definitely check those out at some point. But I'm just going to click here on classes to show you that you can create a class. Now notice this is a section that Classflow thinks that you need some help with, so there's a little video that appears and you can just click play and it will help you to figure out how to create classes, how to add classes, and then how to add students to that class. So I'll leave you to watching that video or to kind of figuring it out on your own, but this is where you would set up your own classes. Now let's look at what I think is the real meat of Classflow, and it is also kind of the confusing, kind of hard part associated with it, but it's very important, and that is here where it says My Resources. When you click on My Resources, it gives you a list of resources you've created in the past. This is a brand new account, so of course there's nothing there. But once there is, notice I'll be able to search my own resources. I can also click here where it says My Resources and search classflow.com resources or specific resource packs that maybe I might buy eventually. You can also search for YouTube videos and Bing images and things like that. So this search bar is pretty useful. But this is where I'm going to collect resources that I'll need for my classes. Let's look at how to create your own resources. Just click here in the upper left corner where it says New. You can make a folder to store some of these things in. You can also create all of these different things. And in this tutorial, because there's so much depth in Classflow, I have to kind of pick a focus, and the focus is going to be on lessons. Having said that, I'm still going to use some assessments in this lesson, and so you'll see some other things here. I'll also give you a glimpse of badges, but let's focus on creating a lesson for your students. I'm just going to click Lesson, and again, I get a little bit of a help video. I'm just going to click off to the side, and I'll just skip that. But if you forget how to do this, the video is very helpful. So at this point, I'm going to click to title my lesson. I'll call this The Parts of Speech. The subject, I can type in a subject if I want. What grade? Okay, I'm going to say this is for second grade, but you can select whatever grade or grades that you would like. You can have multiple grades. Standard, what is this? Well, you can type in a standard, or if you click this box, it takes you to a screen where you can select the particular standard. Now, right now they have just the Common Core State Standards. Next, you could select the specific standard and go from there. I'm just going to cancel that. You can just leave it blank if it doesn't help you to put anything there. You can tag your lesson. So I'll just put parts of speech again. I'll put language, arts, and then I could put in a description of this lesson. an overview of what it's about, and if I want, I can put some lesson notes to the teacher. So things I want to remember, things I want other teachers to be able to remember, and then I just click Save. Okay, so I've just changed the lesson properties. Now that I've got the lesson properties created and changed and saved, it takes me to a screen that's going to remind you a little bit of PowerPoint. Here I have slides, basically, here at the left, but think of them more as cards. That's what Classflow calls them, is cards. These cards can be organized into sections, and typically I just use just one section, the section that comes with it. Okay, so here's slide 1, and I just have to think to myself, what do I want my students to see at the front of the room here in slide 1? Well, probably the title. So I'll click here on text, and then I'll click on this card or slide. I'm just going to call them cards, and there I get a text box. So I'll type in the parts of speech. Now, of course, it doesn't fit there in the text box, but that's okay. You can just use the little handles to click and drag to make it big enough to handle the text. Notice that they have these nice handy guides that help you to center the text if you would like. Now, this text box is nice and centered, but of course the text isn't. So I would go here and center the text within the text box, and now I've got pretty much a perfectly centered text. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Notice that you could highlight it and change some colors and sizes and fonts. I'll leave it to you to explore those options. Next, I would like to dress this up a little bit. It looks so plain. So to do this, I can just go here in the upper left corner and click on Card Theme. So this particular card, what theme do I want it to have? And there's these different themes I can choose. I'm sure they'll add more in the future. You can also use custom themes that you create or build or that you acquire from other teachers that use Classflow. I'll just click on Themes. I'll go down and choose this whiteboard theme. Click Apply, and now that looks a lot better, not so plain. I would also like to have an image here that kind of dresses it up and lets students know what we're about to talk about and learn about. So for images, I would go here in the upper left where it says Insert, and I just click, and it lets me search my resources or other resources, Bing images and so forth, and I could pull those things in. I'm also going to be able to upload new resources, and that's what I want to do in this case. So I just clicked on Upload a new resource, and it went to my desktop in this case. I'll just select the image that I want to upload. It's going to upload it in, and now I can click on it and click Insert or just double click on it. That's the easiest for me. Now my image is put in. In this case, it's a word cloud with the parts of speech kind of listed out there. And I can use these guidelines to help me center that the way I want it to be. And that's good. I've now got my opening slide. Now, from my introduction at the beginning of the video, you might remember that one of the powerful aspects of Classflow is that you have 2 slides potentially for everything you want to show. You've got the teacher slide that's presented at the front of the room using a projector and a screen, typically, although you don't have to do that. And then you also have the student slide or card. I need to start calling them cards. The way that you display for yourself what those 2 cards look like is by going down here and clicking on this particular button with the 4 squares. You click on it and it shows on the left, teacher card, on the right, student card. Okay, so I'm going to click on the plus sign to create a student card. It just remembered the theme that I chose before and applied it. And now here on the student card, they don't necessarily need to see the title. Maybe it would be nice, but just to show you that these 2 cards can be different, I'm not going to put in the text box this time with the title. Instead, I'm just going to go to Insert, and I'm going to pull in that same image with the different parts of speech. And for the students, I'm going to make it bigger. Okay, so that they can really focus on the different parts of speech that there are. And while we're getting ready to start the lesson, maybe this is going to activate their prior knowledge and they'll start thinking, oh yeah, I forgot about interjections, or I wonder, should articles really count as a part of speech? Anyway, they can start to think these things through while we're getting ready to start. Okay, beautiful. So I've got this set up with my first teacher card and student card. Now Classflow is automatically set up just ready to be interactive. It's not just a way to convey information. It's meant to be an interactive experience and make learning really come alive in some exciting ways. And one of the simplest, easiest ways to do that in Classflow is by adding questions. So I'm going to just make sure I've clicked here on my first slide, and then I'll go up to Add Questions. and it takes me to basically the assessment builder. Comes with a little video to help me with it, and I'm just going to create a question set. Okay, so this is basically a quiz or an assessment. What's the name of this assessment or quiz? I'm going to call it pre-assessment. So it's the assessment at the beginning of the lesson to find out what they already know. And I could just describe that, what I just said, there in the description. Is it going to be scored? In this case, I don't think it should be. I just want to assess what they already know. I could randomize the questions, but again, in this case, it doesn't really make sense. There's some other options for pacing, giving them a time limit, and some other things. What kind of feedback do you want them to get? Okay. So you can make those decisions, but when you're ready, you just click save. And now I've got that pre-assessment ready to be created. This is just the basic information about the pre-assessment. Now to actually build the questions, what do? I go to the upper left. There's a way to quick add a question. You just click quick add, and then you go in and start typing. And notice you just follow the instructions here and the example to create your questions. And you can just type fast. If you're a fast typist, you can enter lots of questions very quickly here. If, like me, you're not quite so fast, you might want to just use this add, not quick add, but add button. If you click on it, it lets you create a new question or import questions. I'm just going to create a new question. And here it gives you all these different types of questions. They're amazing. There are some wonderful question types here that you can choose. I'm going to go with multiple choice though in this case. So multiple choice question, and the question is, which of these words is a verb? Now below that, I just need to put in some possible answers. How about horse? How about the word create? I want to add another option. How about dog? Another option. How about yellow? Okay, so I've got 4 possible answers. I could continue to add more possible answers if I wanted to. But now we need to consider, how is Classflow going to know what the right answer is? The way you identify the correct answer is by clicking on the letter that corresponds with the correct answer. So that's it right there. So I am done with this question. I could put in some scoring options. I could put in some feedback for if they get the wrong answer, and I could categorize it. There's all these wonderful things you could do. You can also give specific feedback per answer. So if I click this link, look what I could do. I could go in and explain, no, horse is a noun. Okay, so I could teach here. I could really build in some amazing feedback to my students to help reteach them and help people that are getting wrong answers. And in a lot of subjects, you as the teacher know exactly why they picked the wrong answer, right? Unless they just randomly clicked. You can figure out why they selected that wrong answer, and you can give them some help in response to help them figure out in their head what the right answer is and how to get it. So this is really, I think, an exciting feature for teachers. I'm going to go ahead and save that question. And then I'll add a second question. New question. This one, in this case, I'm going to make it true false. And the question will be, is the word dog a noun? And you can see there's true, there's false. And the correct answer is true, so I just click on true. And I've got some of those same options that I showed earlier. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to call that good. That's the end of this quiz or pre-assessment. To get back to my lesson builder, I just click on exit. It takes me back, and you can see I have 2 questions set up with this slide. And I'm going to click that button again just so you can remember that there's 2 versions of this card. There's one for the teacher, there's one for the student. I'm going to add a second one now, and I can choose to have one with a label, with text set up and all that. I'm just going to go with blank in this case. And on this second card, I want to put a video from YouTube. So I just click Insert, and I can click on My Resources, and I can choose, instead of My Resources, I can choose YouTube videos and do a search of parts of speech. And that gives me all sorts of great results, and I'm sure these are amazing videos, but there's a very specific one I want to use. So I'm going to type in or copy paste the exact name of that video. It looks like it didn't find it. This is a different video. I'm sure it's great as well. If I wanted to use this video, I could just double click on it, and it would insert that video in. But in this case, that's not what I want. So I want to click on the video, tap delete, and I'll go back. And sometimes this happens where it doesn't find the exact YouTube video that you would want. If that's the case, you can just go, instead of inserting from YouTube from within Classflow, you can just click here on link. Okay, so this is a way to add a link. But I much prefer using the custom HTML option. The reason why is because it allows you to embed the video. So back on my YouTube video, I'm just going to go down and choose share. But this time, instead of getting the URL, I'm just going to click on embed, and copy that embed code and then go back to Classflow, and I'll just paste it in here, click Add to Current Card. And so that way, instead of bringing in the whole website, it just brings in the video that I want my students to watch. Great. So this will be played at the front of the room. When I'm ready to play it, I just click the play button. But the students on their devices, I would like them to have something else appear on their screen. So I'm going to click here on text box, click on the card, and now I can type in a message to my students. So please listen carefully for the 8 parts of speech that will be mentioned in this video. Great. And of course I can move that where I want it to be. I can center it and all that. Awesome. So my students will watch this up front while this appears on their own screens. All right, let's look at one more example of what you can add to your Classflow cards. And in many ways, this is the most exciting example, in my opinion. In addition to text and pictures and videos and questions, you can also add content from other websites. So as an example, I'm just going to click this plus sign. I'll get another blank card. And at this point in my Classflow lesson, I would like my students to participate in a Kahoot. And of course, you saw that at the beginning of the video here, how that works when it's played. But how do you set it up? Well, you just go to your Kahoot account, choose your Kahoots by clicking My Kahoots. You find the specific Kahoot game that you would like to play with your students, and then you just copy the link for it. And then back in Classflow, just click Link. And in this case, you do want just to add a website link. So I'll put in my title, Kahoot, paste it in, add to current card. And watch what this does. This is going to pull over the entire website, basically. It pulls in the teacher version of Kahoot, and it will be the specific game that I chose here in Kahoot. All right, now what about the students? Well, if you're familiar with Kahoot, you know that the students have a different page that they use than the teacher, and that is kahoot.it. So I'm just going to go to kahoot.it. I'll click to highlight, copy, and then I'll paste that in on the student card. I'll click link, and I want it to be a link, and student Kahoot is what I'll call this. Add to current card, and this is the card that the students will see on their devices. They'll be able to log in to the game pin that's part of my game, and then they'll be able to put their own names in on their devices, while at the front of the room, they see this. They see my actual Kahoot activity. So I'm going to stop here with the building of the Classflow, but just know that you could continue to add slides, add content. You can pull in Socrative activities. You can pull in animations from animation websites. You can pull in all sorts of embedded items from most of the common educational websites that are out there. So I think of Classflow now as a tool that brings most of the excellent educational experiences that our students can have online, and it brings them together into one system. And I can deploy those activities and those games and interactives, animations, videos, whatever it may be. I can deploy those out and send them to the students while showing them something else at the front of the room. It's really fantastic and brilliant, in my opinion. I love Classflow. Just a reminder, when you are done with your activity and you're ready to play it with your students, you can just click Present. You can go and assign it to a specific class. In this case, I haven't set up any classes. Or you can just click Ad Hoc Session, and then it will give you the code that you should share with students. Now, as you do this activity, if you would like, you can award badges to your students. Let's say a particular student does something great, something amazing. You can just click here on Award Badges, and you'll be able to select individuals and select the badges that they have earned and that they get to have in their account. I could go on for another hour and a half. It's a very rich program, but I hope that you'll take the time to explore and see what you can do with Classflow. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more video tutorials about technology for teachers and students.